Jose thought that the little beings understood that he belonged to the army from his identity card because they made him a demonstration of their firearms, pointing a sort of a gun to the wall, and one of them, when he pressed the trigger of the gun, a luminous ray went out, which caused a discoloration in part of the wall that it had been hit. Followed by that, he had a talk with the chief about the guns. All of these guns were the same model but different sizes, much smaller than a rifle, with the larger holes, larger tubes. And okay, sorry. And the gun basically it was um, larger on the back and would kind of go stay go smaller on the front. Um, on the central part of the tip, there was a sort of a trigger that pulled back. It emitted a luminous ray, and at the same time, they had thrown it to his leg before the capture. One of the little men put his fingers, short and thick, of the boss into a small black cylindrical object that he used like a pen. Uh, and he wrote something on the table which was clearer. Um, he also accompanied accompanied it by uh, some words and big gestures. He could understand from what he understood basically that they wanted Jose to get a gun just like the ones they use on Earth, probably to collect. Since they already have had objects, illustrations, and the same individuals of our planet. Jose refused categorically, even though the chief insisted, and by that time he lost all hopes of returning home. Jose refused to talk, to say whatever he had talked at the time with the chief. One of the men uh, brought him on his hand a cube that looked like it was made of stone, heavy, open on the top part, and in form of a pyramid. It contained a green liquid with not very good taste. um, it was kind of uh, I don't know how we say this. Didn't taste very good. He drank it because he felt very weak and because he saw one of the men drinking. The chief had ordered him to drink it because one of his subordinates had took his helmet with such violence, and after I drank it, Jose felt better. He found vitality and even understood better what the chief was saying or trying to say. Between various aspects of the the attempts of communication, Jose is formal. The individuals insisted but that I would help them to their wishes in relation to our planet. Even by numerous explanations, by writing or gestures, etc., the chief made him understood with drawings that they represented the calendar, the earth calendar, through
So
circles,
that
black
picture
circles, and
didn't
white.
make sense to me because
And
Cambion had this
would
kid
rec-
singing like a
would
crazy person,
take them back to Earth, where he would stay
and some
3 years
people reported him for that.
to collect
Well,
information.
yeah,
After this
he made many
prize,
good
this
pictures.
this
Like making
time limit, they would come back to get
he
him
he
to
keeps
live
his
and
kid
study
like
with them for 7 years.
any kid
After they would come back in Earth, they
there is
would come
nothing
back
wrong with
to
that.
Earth,
You're not allowed
having
to use
Antonio
other
as their
people's
guide.
kids, but you can
Jose answered with a
share your
negative gesture,
yeah,
showing
as long as
that
it's
he didn't
respectful.
want that.
Yeah,
He grabbed his cross that he had
I didn't
rolled
get that.
on
I
his
remember.
belt. He was praying in high voice. Then the chief advanced to him
Yeah,
and,
but he's a
showing
good
some
letter.
irritation for the
It's not
first
an
time,
AI looking at
they took
his
his
thing.
crucifix away. One of the chains even rolled on the ground and was picked up by one of them
That was not
that
the reason
made
I don't
circled
have my channel
so that
like
everybody would see
trying
it,
to monetize anything.
just like the cross that he passed to each other. Suddenly, meanwhile, the little men were even more discussing the situation. Jose saw appearing, just like out of the darkness, a human figure that went straight to his front in a friendly attitude and talked to him in a correct Portuguese because he's Brazilian, guys. Jose understood that this vision was only seen by him because all of them were even more furious. This apparition had about 1.7 meters of height, long blonde hair and beard. Um, the skin was white and rosed, the eyes were clear and serene. It had a dark um, robe that went to his feet. He wasn't he wasn't wearing any shoes, and he had very long slings, not slings, but
Yeah. Oh, that move.
basically his robe on his arms was very quite long. um, the goal of his robe was turned inside, and it had a string, a rope, large and white around his waist, with a knot in each in each tip, like the monks use. Between that moment, he felt some anguish, painful anguish, and with no hope. Then he felt more alleviated after some revelations that this vision made him. These revelations shouldn't be communicated to anyone else. Even Jose received new instructions that would happen between the 2 and 3 years. About the vision, the soldier gave proof of a strong resistance to the questions that were made to him, even though um, these questions were about to mention the message that he considers a secret, but the details of the physical description of the individual seen in the separation were only given after a lot of effort. We asked him how it would be possible to find out the secret only with the description and the traces about someone that we don't know, that we never met. He gave me a sensation that we could recognize this person and that it wouldn't be impossible to find this person. When I asked um, if this vision was Jesus, he said immediately, no, nothing like that. The same way that we wanted to know if this was any kind of saint, he refused to answer, limiting himself to smiling. After we changed the subject, we were able to obtain some more directions about the meaning of the message. The text of the conclusion and the um, content of the message. This conclusion, until the moment, didn't appear on one journal, it only appeared on another bulletin. On the journey back, the entity disappeared just like it appeared, and at the same man, the little man started to show signs of irritation between them. The chief approximated to one of the guards that was closer to Jose, and the ocular holes were again um, covered by a blindfold. The soldier was again transported to another place where they took the blind off. He recognized the interior of the cabin. Afterwards, he restarted his long journey of returning. Even the three men and the same incidents on the returning, even the change in position of the device, even the increasing of the light during a certain time, the pulsations, etc. So that same experience when he went uh, to wherever they took him, he came back. We're probably talking about a portal, guys. I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that he's talking about a
Since when did you
portal.
even go out and do? Okay, I know you're listening right now because you knew that I knew
Immediately
that you
after the
knew that you was
shock
going
of
to
the
be here.
landing, he
Well, he's
felt
making you
that they
available
were
to me
taking off his
because
helmet. Then
we had
he
another
suffered
channel
almost a
channel
complete
to get
loss
to.
of
You know, she
consciousness,
watches this all the time,
feeling
and she just don't tell me.
dragging into obscurity. He
She goes to
thinks
go and check. She's always on YouTube
that
TV,
he had been about 1 hour after
kind and
what he
generous.
started to
One
notice
hundred
signs of
$25
the
donation, guys. One
the
hundred and
sun
twenty-five
growing
bucks. I
outside.
got chill bumps. I thought I was going to cry. I
So
kept
he
looking.
noticed
I
that the
called the
sun was
same
starting
lady, and then I sent her a
to
message,
to
and she said, "Yes, that's
the
right."
sun
I said,
was
"No, no. I mean, the decimal
you
points
know
ain't in the right spot." I
starting to
was
come
thinking
up.
she meant to send me $12,
After
but she said,
he thought that
"No."
he heard the sound of water
She said, "No, that's right."
um, dripping,
Again,
he
JP and
dragged
pictures.
into the
I'm a buck
ground
three. Hell
and
yeah,
until
JP gave us every
nearby a
little
stream
dime
of
left
water,
in his little bank
taking
account.
his canteen
JP was a
of
dollar
the
short.
bag that he had kept.
That's like me.
He
I'll
drank about a
bring some
liter and a
voucher
half
for a
of
few
water.
cents. Yeah,
Straight away, he took the things of
the
his
government knows
fishing,
that.
and he was able
The
to
government knows
fish
that. They know
some
our brains.
fish to
They know what
eat.
we got in our brains. I know what you
Then,
got in
when
your
the
brain.
sun started to
Oh
go up
yeah.
even higher,
William.
he noticed
I'm gonna take it
that
all.
the place
William.
where he
Okay,
was
William.
completely
I don't know if you
unknown.
got it, but this
He never seen
little
it
alley.
before. He was
Okay,
limping,
well, yeah,
agitated, and very drained,
$125.
and
$125
the
bucks. I was
beard,
over at her channel,
after a few
and she, I
days,
said, yeah, I said, I'm $100 short on my electric money.
so
I said, I
he
don't know
had a
what the hell
beard
I'm gonna do.
of several
So
days. He got
dark.
to near a little
Yeah.
road,
And she said,
paved road,
oh, she
asking
says,
where he
you
was.
guys are
He
fucking
was
awesome.
answered
And she's
that he
talking
was
about me
32
you.
kilometers from
And she
Victoria,
was happy that there
the
was a
capital
person
of the
strong,
state of
you know.
Espírito Santo,
But
and that the
yeah,
street
yeah,
was going to
yeah.
Victoria
She said
from the
she
state
would get
of
mad and she would
Minas
turn.
Gerais.
She said she would just get mad and turn.
When he asked
She
which
said,
day
I'm
it
sorry, but I would just
was,
leave your show. I'm sorry. She said, I
the
couldn't
person
listen
was
to it.
surprised,
You ain't.
but
That's right.
answered the
That's what that.
soldier that it was Friday, 9th of May.
Power button is for right.
So basically, he was 4 days and a half of absence. After a quick mental calculus, Jose Antonio got to the conclusion that he had been absent for 4.5 days, and it was better that he would not go back to Minas
Nobody
Gerais
gets it.
because he couldn't explain his absence. Nobody would believe his story. So he thought it would be better for him to go back to the woods and try to live from fruit and fish. He was afraid of being caught by the
Oh,
police
get a little
because he
picture of
didn't
him.
have an identity
That's
card.
all.
Though the street that he followed
I sent
approximated
that
him
picture of Mrs.
to
John,
Minas Gerais, and
John's wife.
several
I sent that
times he
picture. I
asked
said, oh my
people
God. And what we had just talked about
um,
previously, like an
that were
hour
trying to
or so,
grab
he had just
him.
talked about that. Every time I see it, William, I hear that. Oh my God. Oh, oh, I can still laugh, and that was a month ago.
So many people tried to grab him because they saw him walking with such difficulty, but he refused. Finally, he accepted because he was very tired.
Just hanging out and talking a
He
little bit. We
got
had
to
some
a
really good
place
action
called
here, and I
Culatina.
thought it was going to take the power
He was
out.
prudent and
Who's
he
got your
didn't
bank
tell the
information?
story, telling the people
I do.
that
Oh, it does.
um,
Yeah.
he
Okay.
was basically doing a promise, a religious promise.
Even if the bank says they don't, they probably do
But
because
then
the
he
bank would lie
decided to
for them,
go home,
wouldn't they? I would think
even
so. Yeah.
though he got into a station. He had to wait a lot of time for the train. He went, he started talking to an employee on the station that had pity of him and asked him to go have dinner to his house.
Yeah.
At 7 hours 25 minutes of
That's not funny.
Saturday,
Yeah. Yeah.
he got out of the train in Belo Horizonte, and a policeman uh, went and talked with him. That's where he
They're
told the
pretty
story
tough. Yeah. Yep.
to the
Yep.
policeman.
So
After our interviews with Jose, he insisted that we went with him
did you
to the
skip with
place where
Kimball?
he had been abducted,
Yeah. Run through Kimball's.
and that we would find a little fish swimming in a little
I was
pond
running like
where
we spent 5 hours looking for a turkey today. The wife said there's a
there
turkey. Did you
he
get us a
found
turkey?
a little fish swimming in a little pond where he had fallen because
No.
that's where
That's what we looked
Jose
for. We
threw
said
it.
frozen turkey. You know,
Even though
you walk into the store and it says butterball turkey.
it had
You
many
can't get
fishes
no more
then.
common and simple than a butterball turkey.
Um,
Same fucking bird
Mr.
for the
Rene
last
Foray
70 years I know of.
talks about many
There's
details
other.
that lead him to think
No,
that
did not. We
this
went to
story
another
could
county.
not be
We stopped.
invented.
We went to every grocery store.
He
We went to
says, I
every
also
grocery store today,
believe
bro.
that by fact
Yeah, there's
Jose
17
lived
grocery
all that he
stores
said
between this county
and
and the
the
next one.
adventure
No,
to a
butterball
very
turkey.
similar adventure.
So she stews on this
Even
all
how
day.
even
She says,
the way
once a week or two,
that it's not
we're
very
gonna let the
usual
market
for the
open.
device that
Twice as high as it
transported
promised.
him to
She
another
said the turkeys
planet
will be back and the
is
prices will be
similar
back.
to the object drew by Cecil Michel. The same Michel was transported to a planet that looked like Inferno and had a vision
Oh, but
of
here's a
Jesus
request.
that permitted
Normally,
him
William,
to
normally,
go back to
okay,
Earth.
today, me and the wife
Then,
drove
as
across
well,
the
he
street. We just drive across
was
the highway.
tempted by the
There's
devil
Kroger.
or a
We
similar
across the Kroger.
entity, and he
Yeah, there
refused
was
to
no nothing.
collaborate. The investigates
Yeah, we picked up
conclude
receipts.
that
How the hell
Jose was a
our
man
Kroger is sold
of
out of the Kroger
education
stores?
and modest
We
conditions,
y'all
a
should have a
very
Publix.
um,
Y'all got Publix?
good, a good person in society, and had all
Do you know
of
like
the
Riley's
trust
and
of the
Checkers
family
restaurant?
and his superior. Mr. Foray also notes that
Of course.
his adversaries of the material reality of the flying saucers will never stop taking advantage of the negative side to this case. The uh, the vision that Jose had in the moment that he had lost himself, even though keeping secret some revelations of the apparition that he had, he affirms that it wasn't Christ
Sweet.
from what he
Norway
could
and Brazil.
see.
Sweet.
GPA knows that by the receiving of certain spirits in a religious context, you cannot publish these reports that contain these certain
Borat.
manifestations. So, certain journals would not publish these things because they were very similar to religion, you know? In this case,
Yes,
GPA opened an exception,
it is not.
maybe because it's shown that at least once the complexity of the UFO phenomenon and the difficulty of studying it. The world described by Jose is very disconcerting and primitive. Recipient of stone, benches, and other seats made of stone, rudimentary, but on the other side, very modern in which in when you talk about illumination and the device itself, um, the world evoked by Jose leaves a certain feeling of undefinable, even even disconcerting, because even Jose would always be remaining under vigilance by these entities.
Yeah,
From
but
what he
it's like
says,
you
he saw three of them
that
on
first
the
like
night of
that's the difference here and for you
21 of May of
of course over there right in here
1969
and they're printed
on
in
his
different shapes.
garden.
You
Um,
you need to take a nothing, Sid. Sid, it's like both of them
from
came
what
out
he
in a
said,
circle from
to
the
get to
thing.
this planet, it
It's
took
because if
about
you look at
24 to
Norway
48
itself being
hours.
like a country,
So,
there's
where
little
would it be
like different
located?
parts of it.
Almost that I'm tempted to think that all
It's
this
weird
time
over there.
that Jose observed the
Like, do
strong
the lab,
light
do the
on the
lab.
exterior,
Go to the
it
store
would
somewhere.
correspond to the
Go to Conrad,
passage
go to the stores. That would be cool as
next
shit.
to the sun.
You ready to see
But
the
this
stores? Then you see how much
deduction
beer I
is only
buy.
possible
Like kind of like that.
admitting to a
With the
velocity completely
I'll show you the
un
shelf with whale meat.
um,
No,
in
fucking
a
ripped
in
it.
a in a velocity that we cannot withstand being humans.
I heard they was abducting the Hutch family and the Hutch strand for the oil.
Therefore, an
Oh my
unknown
god,
method
oh
of
my god, I should have.
transportation.
I screwed that up. I was trying to make a joke. Whale look
Um,
every day. Ah,
on
well,
the
well,
number
Hutch family
2044
and
on the number 44 of
how
June
much
of
oil was coming out of it.
1975, spatial phenomenon,
Uh,
Mr. Rene Foray talks about the reactions that the readers
yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
had
That's a good one,
after
Jimbo.
the
That's a
publishing
quick
of
and
this
fast one,
case.
and you have to
The main objection
catch that.
was raised,
Ants, yeah.
and that it was
And you got
difficult to admit that a
ants.
device that had
Look up.
possibilities to realize to do interstellar
Oh, I
journeys
know. I know.
couldn't have command panels, wouldn't have
Hell yeah.
complicated control panels, several screens, and needles, buttons, manometers, etc., just like they would have in our modern
I just made that look cool.
airplanes and our rockets.
Okay, so you will.
The
There you go.
device transported Jose in a very apparent simplicity, absolutely disconcerting.
And like,
Mr. Foray
the
also
altitude
notes
you have to
that
follow too. Like
um,
they run through the year.
it's comprehensible the
What's this like?
surprise of the
3.99 a month
readers,
like as a
but you
person?
also have to
How required?
remain have
They leave
attention
the app, went back in,
not
and
to
it just
see
you know.
the image
So whenever you don't get a deal on an app,
of,
you dig,
of
you
similarity
reinstall it.
to our spatial machines.
That's what you should do with
So he says for us not to compare.
select it,
It's
subscribe,
only
select
because
remove.
flying saucers
Then you get
overcome these possibilities of
they
flight
replaced the
from our
corporate internet businesses too.
machines,
You know,
from
they
our
want some
airplanes.
special trips here.
It would be wrong to think that
Okay,
these
go to
are
it for like a couple months.
made by smarter beings than us and with a superior technique to ours. Personally, adding that the inventors know very well that it is much more difficult to do simple things than complicated. Many of others on this book won't be as complicated.
What's sad? What's sad is going Christmas shopping and birthday shopping.
Bless you, my people. This is part two of the case of Bebedouro, Brazil, and there will be part three to finish, guys. Three more pages. Stay blessed.